All right, so recording has started. We are currently live streaming on YouTube as well. Welcome everyone to LSSA 2320's candidate forum for candidates for the following NOLSW board positions: President, National Vice President, Northeast Region Vice President, and Trustee. So the National Organization of Legal Services Workers, or NOLSW, is the national local of the UAW, of which LSSA 2320 is a part. My name's Liz Fisher, and I'm on the executive committee of LSSA 2320. My title is Vice President for the Mobilization for Justice, or MFJ shop. So thank you again to all of our candidates for joining us and to all of our members for joining. The order of speaking was determined beforehand by a coin toss. We're going to begin with opening statements, first from our candidates for president, then national VP, then Northeast VP, and finally trustee. Each candidate is going to have 3 minutes to make their opening statement. I will be keeping track of the time on my end, and I will ask our candidates to also keep track of their time independently, and I'll call time at the end of 3 minutes. After we finish with opening statements, we'll move to a Q&A portion. I have some pre-written questions for each position, and then we will have time for some audience Q&A. As far as the logistics for audience Q&A, I'm going to ask our audience members to simply drop their questions in the chat so that I can keep track of the questions as they come in. And then once we get to the audience Q&A portion, I'll call on you in the order in which you submitted your question to the chat. And I would ask our audience members to specify to whom their question is directed, and our candidates will have an opportunity to answer. So without further ado, let's start with our opening statements, 3 minutes each, and we'll begin with our first candidate for president, Pam Smith.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Thank you so much to Liz and to Gib for organizing this event, and to all the LSSA members for attending the event. As Liz said, I am Pam Smith. I am the current president of NOLSW. I have been a staff member of NOLSW, a member since 2000. I started as a rank and file member at the Maryland Legal Aid Bureau after I graduated law school. And I worked at Legal Aid in Maryland for 7 years. I did a lot of public benefits work, family law, child in need of assistance cases, basically the whole gamut of legal services cases. And I got very actively involved in my union. I served as a steward, I served as a bargaining committee member, and I eventually became chair of the Maryland Legal Aid Workers Union, which is a statewide union. Maryland's a very large unit. And then when I left Maryland Legal Aid, I became a national negotiator for the National Treasury Employees Union. And shortly into that position, I was recruited by Ellen Wallace, the former president of NOLSW, to come back as a staff member. So in 2008, I left the National Treasury Employees Union and came back to NOLSW, which is truly my home. I went to law school knowing I wanted to go work in legal services. I pursued a dual degree in social work and law because I recognize the systemic problems that people face, and wanted to fight that in legal services. And when I got to legal services, became empowered working on behalf of members. I think, and I have served as the financial secretary treasurer of NOLSW and have most recently been president for the past 4 years. One of my proudest accomplishments as president has been maintaining a servicing credit. NOLSW has a unique structure around the country where we hire our own staff, often coming out of legal services and human services agencies, and we're able to do that with the support of the servicing credit, and that was in jeopardy by the former UAW president and now Ellen, Gary Jones. And so I fought very hard during my first term to maintain that servicing credit, to be able to continue the amazing work and have members come up and represent the local. I'm proud of that work and hope to talk more about the other plans I have for the local. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you, Pam. We will now go to our second candidate for president, Jordan.
Thank you, Liz. Sorry, I'm getting my timer queued up. So good evening, everyone. I want to thank the members of LSSA for being here tonight, and especially to Liz and Gib for hosting and putting this together. My name is Jordan Barbeau, and I'm running for president of the National Organization of Legal Service Workers. Briefly, my professional experience runs from field organizing, starting back with the Working Families Party based in Brooklyn, New York, obviously all over the boroughs, all over Jersey. That was back in 2009, 2010, before law school. I then became a union member for the first time in 2012 while I was clerking in Hennepin County in Minnesota, which coincidentally is also where my great-grandfather had been a union organizer with the Painters Union many years before. After law school, I then went back into field, working as a deputy field director across Nevada, Utah, and California on the Bernie 2016 primary campaign. Then I transitioned into external organizing with National Nurses United and their sister union, CHEU, which is caregivers and healthcare employees, before finally giving in and deciding I should become an attorney. So now a practicing attorney in Portland, Oregon, where I found a nice union shop, nonprofit organization where I've been litigating since 2018. And aside from labor and community organizing, also a background in publicity, editing, and IT administration. And really, if you want to just dig in on the biography, you can get more of that info at our website, which is NOLSWunited.com. You can also find a link in the footer of that site to a survey that our slate has created, because we really want feedback from the members on what you guys want to see from your union. But my goal for tonight, with our limited time that we have, is to hear from the members, hear your questions, and talk about why everyone in NOLSW needs to be involved in this election process. We're a union that was formed with pretty big, admirable aspirations, and we need to bring back that dedication, bring back those values from our founding, and join them with new approaches to organizing, to technology, to communication, to transparency. And I'm proud to be part of the NOLSW United slate, because we all know that there's a lot more that can be done to serve and support our members. We know, what we should be getting from our dues that support this union. We are members ourselves, we're organizers, and we're ready to take it to the next level. You're going to hear a lot tonight about the servicing credit that's been mentioned. You might find it surprising that it is probably the first time you've really heard much about it. We'll dig in more on it, but one question you may want to ask is why, if it was such a significant issue and so dire and so significantly threatened, why that wasn't something that was brought to the members at the time. But I want to hear your questions and your concerns, so let's dig in.
Okay, thank you, Jordan. We're now going to go to our candidate for national vice president, who's with us tonight. We just have one candidate with us. So Matthew, please share your opening statement with us.
Great. Thanks to LSSA 2320, particularly to Liz and Gib. It's good to be with you all this evening. I'm Matt Vogel, and I'm running for National Vice President. I'm a lawyer at the National Immigration Project of the National Lawyers Guild, and I'm steward for the National Lawyers Guild Staff Union. You'll find more about me and our slate at NOLSWunited.com. We're running to re-energize and to refocus NOLSW, to bring NOLSW leadership back to the trenches, to work and to fight alongside and for its members. This means meeting with members and letting their wants and needs drive the agenda. It means making sure all of our units have the tools they need for strong CBAs. And it means enforcing our CBAs, pushing back on management efforts to weaken the gains we win. Now, in order to fight, we must build solidarity. Solidarity doesn't simply happen because we're all in the union. It requires hard work. We are committed to developing the structures needed for increased member access to and participation in our union. This means strengthening the bonds between units. It means training and education, orientation and organizing. Now, I've never even heard of a regional meeting with the other units. The incumbents haven't held any. I'd never been notified of NEB meetings or seen notes from any. The incumbents meet only in secrecy. The incumbents have let requests for assistance from workplaces seeking to unionize go unanswered, and they've even allowed a unit to fall out of compliance, leaving members there ineligible to vote in this election. We asked for a member email list at the outset of this campaign, but we were told in this day and age, when email is ubiquitous, that the union simply doesn't even have members' emails. The 2021 NJC voted to make one member, one vote a priority and to commit resources to its passage. Did anything come of that? It fell on deaf ears at the NEB. Needless to say, UAWD, Unite All Workers for Democracy, the reform caucus that has led the way in democratic reform of the UAWD has endorsed our slate. Now, I haven't been a member as long as the incumbents, but in my years with the NLG staff union, I have worked and fought hard. I value the experience of my opponent, Mr. Garza, but experience doesn't count unless you show up. This is the second and perhaps the last candidate forum that will happen during this election. And Mr. Garza hasn't even bothered to show up for any of them. Moreover, Mr. Garza doesn't even work at an NOLSW workplace anymore. And he's not retired. He just took a new job. That's who the incumbents put up for national vice president. Somebody who doesn't even work in an NOLSW shop anymore. Now, I wish Mr. Garza all the best in his new job, but NOLSW members deserve better. We are excited about fighting alongside each of you. We are eager to roll up our sleeves and get to work. We will show up. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Matt. We are next going to go to our candidates for Northeast Region Vice President, Karen Rosenberg and Natalie James, and we are going to start with Karen.
Actually, I think it was the opposite.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yes, Natalie is first. Thank you, Karen.
Hello, everybody. Many of you may know me. My name is Natalie James. I use she, her pronouns, and I work as a housing attorney at Brooklyn Legal Services. A little more about my background. I am the proud daughter of an immigrant from Colombia, South America, who raised my sister and me largely as a single mother. And I also identify strongly as being part of the LGBTQ+ community and have been an activist in that community. Prior to joining this union, I was active in several different ways in terms of defending LGBTQ rights. Most recently in 2020, during the pandemic, the city partnered with the infamous evangelical group Samaritan's Purse, run by Franklin Graham, son of Billy Graham, to put up some tents in Central Park with 68 hospital beds and take some, patients from Mount Sinai Hospital. In order to volunteer or work in that space, volunteers and workers had to sign on a so-called statement of faith, which stated, amongst other things, that human sexuality was only to be defined within the confines of marriage between a biological male and a biological female. This was obviously an affront to everything New York City stood for in terms of freedom for the LGBT community for generations. I gathered a group of activists. We staged protests despite it being at an early stage of the pandemic, and garnered local, national, and international press. Caught the attention of the mayor's office as well as the governor's office, and were credited with an early departure from that group, so they could not use New York City as a fundraising backdrop for their right-wing agenda. In addition, in 2019, I was core in forming what was then called and is currently still ongoing as the Queer Liberation March. The object of this march was to have a people's protest march, which would not receive corporate funding, which would not have a police contingent, but instead would harken back to the earliest protest marches, which were literally people coming off the streets and off the sidewalks and into the streets. And in our first year in 2019, we organized 45,000 marchers. And that's something that I'm very proud of. In regards to my union history, for 7 years, I worked at a non-unionized not-for-profit. I saw how how management took a top-down approach and simply informed us of drastic changes to our quality of life. And I decided I needed to get into a union, and I wanted to get into this one. I changed the area of law I practiced in order to get into this union.
Sorry, Natalie, that's your time.
Yeah, thank you. And I look forward to speaking more about this later in the platform. Thank you.
Thank you, Natalie. And now we will go to Karen. So start your timer for 3 minutes and please share your opening statement.
Thank you. I'm going to depend upon you to tell me when to stop.
Sure.
My name is Karen Rosenberg, and I am currently the Northeast Regional Vice President for NOLSW, which I have been, I guess, since 2019. So this was my first term. I went to law school in the 1980s, probably older than most of the people here. And I worked at Legal Services in Massachusetts, in Lynn, Holyoke, and Jamaica Plain in Boston while I was in law school. When I graduated, I went to work at Cape Cod Legal Services and worked in Hyannis for a few years. And that's when I became an NOLSW member for the first time. I subsequently left to Rhode Island to become a disability rights lawyer a few years later, and ended up organizing my new shop and bargaining the first contract, working very closely with Ellen Wallace, the former president of our union, who some of you probably know. At that point, I realized that was sort of a transformational experience for me, and I realized that what I really wanted to do was work in the labor movement. And so when a job came open at NOLSW, I joined the staff and went to work there in 2002. I loved my job at NOLSW. It was the best place I worked. I loved my colleagues. I was extremely proud to represent our members who do amazing social justice work. And it was, again, a formative experience for me. But I was invited in 2008 to join the staff of the region. And I did that, and I worked there for 12 years. That was also a tremendous experience. I have many, many accomplishments I'm very proud of in terms of the work I did. I felt very fortunate to work with some really amazing organizers and union leaders and learn a lot from them. But I would say that the thing that I was most proud of as a staff person there was the work I do to teach our members 6 skills to be able to represent themselves and to become empowered and to understand, the power of the union so that they can go on to build their own strong unions.
Sorry, Karen, that's your time. Thank you. Okay. So we're now going to go to our 2 trustee candidates who are with us tonight. Just to clarify to our members who are with us, we are actually voting for 3 trustee candidates. So I believe there are 5 total candidates and we have 2 with us tonight. So we determined the order of speaking beforehand via a coin toss. So we're going to begin with Mary Ellen. So Mary Ellen, I will start the timer for 3 minutes when you unmute yourself, and I look forward to your opening statement.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting us to this forum, Elizabeth and Gib. My name's Mary Ellen Knowes, and I work for Southeastern Ohio Legal Services. And in 1981, we unionized program-wide. And at that time, well, our union covers 30-some counties in rural Appalachian, Ohio. We have we have 7 offices, and it's probably almost half of Ohio that we represent. We also kept what once was known, I don't know if you all know this, but we used to have state support centers, and ours in Ohio, because of the union, has survived all these years. It is now called Ohio Poverty Law Center, and it is still a hub and a resource for the state of Ohio legal services. And they do a lot of stuff on the Hill local in Columbus. Prior to that, I was a member of the US Postal Union. But when I came to legal services, we initially unionized because many of our members were eligible for food stamps. And it was a sin to me to think that, especially after coming from the postal union, to see that persons who were working, their families were eligible for food stamps. So we decided that we wanted to support NOLSW, which at the time was associated with what was called District 65, which was an amalgamated local like we are now. And they were the ones that were fighting Ronald Reagan and his attempt to zero fund legal services. So we supported them and have continued to be with NOLSW. I've negotiated contracts with 4 of the 5, I think, executive directors that the programs have had. We are now LASC, Legal Services Association of Columbus, is now merged with us as well. However, they have a separate union. I've gone to CAP conferences and lobbied on the Hill in DC for workers' rights and legal services amendments, against amendments, certain things. Previously, I was the Midwest Vice President and currently as a trustee. I think the most important thing, the executive
Sorry,
committee.
Mary Ellen, that was your time.
Thank you.
So thank you, Mary Ellen. And now we are going to go to Jacob. So I will start my timer when you unmute yourself.
Thank you, Liz. And thank you, LSSA and GIB, for hosting this forum so members can get to know candidates and make informed decisions. It's very important. So a bit about me. I'm a hotline attorney at a Michigan legal aid organization. I live in Detroit. I had been involved in some community organizing work before I got involved in the NOLSW legal aid organization. Before that, I was organizing churches, and I also worked the grind at Starbucks long before it was unionized. And I'm really proud to be a part of the NOLSW United Slate. I've gotten to know fellow NOLSW workers on the slate since NJC, and there's some really hardworking people, passionate, and I'm really excited to get to know them. There's some that aren't here tonight, but they're great too. So I think we make a great team. And I would be thrilled to serve as NOLSW trustee, or one of the trustees. So just a little bit about what a trustee is, what the role is, because some members might not be aware. So the trustee is responsible for overseeing expenditures and receipt of dues to make sure things are in compliance, basically, is a big, the biggest part of the role. So I bring some personal skills that I think would lend well to this role. I have a history of some accounting. I worked with a small nonprofit. I was one of 2, or for a long time, I was the only paid staff there. And I'm one of those rare attorneys who's also a math person. So at this nonprofit, I created some custom spreadsheets for our books, and I can say that the books were very tight. Oh, that was exciting. A little bit about how long I've been a part of NOLSW. So I joined the bargaining team at my legal aid organization soon after joining the bargaining unit in November of 2020. And after almost a year, we've finalized our first contract. It became effective August 2021. And I was elected chair of our unit. And I continue to serve in that role. And I'm happy to do that. It's a lot of fun, challenging, but it's great. So a bit about what has happened since I started that role. So it was a big deal bringing our contract to a conclusion. It was tough bargaining, very oppositional, employer attorney, and it was a pretty awesome contract. We got a credentialing tool for salaries, and we got raises of $20,000 for some folks. So that was pretty awesome. And now I continue to build a collaborative team. We have a team of about 11 people on our executive team, and I know I can't do this alone, but it's great to work with this team, and we make things happen. Everybody contributes. It's really great. So I might leave it there for my opening.
Okay, so that concludes the opening statement portion of our forum tonight. We're now going to proceed to the question and answer portion. I have 2 pre-written questions for each set of candidates. And a reminder to our audience members, you can just put your questions as you think of them in the chat. And once we get to the audience Q&A portion, I will call on you in the order in which you entered your question into the chat. So don't be afraid to use the chat. And we will begin with our 2 candidates for president. Again, we determined the order of speaking via a coin toss earlier, and Pam will go first. So my first question, and Pam, you will have 2 minutes to answer, and Jordan will be given an optional 1-minute rebuttal, and then we will do the reverse. So Jordan will have the same question, and Pam will have an optional 1-minute rebuttal. So the first question is, what is your plan for growing and improving NOLSW over the next 3 years?
Thank you. Our union over my 4-year tenure as president, which includes a 1-year finishing out the term of Gordon Dean, the union has grown by 17% in terms of membership numbers and 35% in terms of dues base. And so we have grown both in terms of our members and negotiating strong contracts with wage increases. During the next 3 years, I really want to focus on strategically organizing. We've started some steps in terms of organizing like ACLU units and Make the Road and similar organizations, and really focusing on creating density within those kinds of organizations. I'd really like to build our capacity. I've been able to build our capacity for organizing during my tenure by hiring 2.6 additional organizing staff members. So we've done some really good organizing. Going forward, I'd like to find ways to incorporate our members into new organizing. So training members up to be able to take advantage of the connections that we all have. We all have natural connections with other friends, colleagues in other organizations. And so build on that to build the capacity. I know LSSA has a provision in your contract that allows for a 1-year leave of absence. I would love to be able to hire members who are willing to come out of the unit and be trained to do organizing work to help do that. And it does 2 things. It builds our organizing capacity. It also builds up the depth of leadership within our membership that understands organizing, understands contract bargaining, both within the local, but if they want to concentrate on it, it would provide that opportunity as well. And I think that's time.
Okay, thank you, Pam. Jordan, would you like your opportunity for a 1-minute rebuttal?
Yes, please. Let me know
Okay.
when you'll start the timer, and I'll start mine to match.
I'll begin it now.
Great. I know that we have grown in terms of membership overall, but when you look at things that are actually verifiable metrics, it's not a pretty picture. There's a lot of data that you can verify through the NLRB website. For example, what the outcomes have been for any elections that have unionized with us versus with other organizations like ALAA, which is UAW 2325. And if you look at the records for 2018 to 2022, you see that there were 2 successful NLRB elections for NOLSW and 1 loss, a really embarrassing loss in the New York metro area, where there was 1 lone vote for NOLSW to 9 votes against. In the same time period, there's double the number of successful elections for ALAA and at least 5 other legal service workplaces that organize with other unions like Teamsters and the Nonprofit Professional Employees Union. And that's not counting units that we've lost over this time period because they can't get a response from their reps.
So that was your time for the rebuttal. And now I will ask you the same question, and you will have 2 minutes to answer, and Pam will have an option for a 1-minute rebuttal. So again, the question is, what is your plan for growing and improving NOLSW over the next 3 years? And I will start my timer now.
Thank you, Liz. And sorry, I needed to restart my timer there. There's a lot that we're planning to do, and you can see a lot of it on our website, but I would list it generally in sort of 2 particular categories. One is sort of smaller practical steps to ensure that our members are actually getting the support they need, are actually getting the resources they need. For example, getting connected with things like the UAW research department that a lot of our members don't know that they can actually go to for help in reviewing financials during bargaining. That's a resource that already exists, just making that something available to be connected with. Education and actually, training folks on things like being a steward, being a treasurer, having regular access to your dues info, having access to CBAs for other units and model language for, different things that you can put into a contract and try to gain because you don't know what you can ask for if it's not something that was in your existing contract. And those are all things that are really easy to do. And that way we can start to ensure that we've got the best contracts possible for all of our units. And then on a more sort of broad level, we need to be making a lot more long-term, big picture strategic plans. We need to really reactivate what used to be a fairly active, lobbying and legislative effort. At its most base level, it's a way to get more funding for our organizations. But it also makes a big difference in terms of some of the bottom line values for our organization in terms of eradicating poverty, getting at the core issues that affect the client populations that we serve, things like, affordable housing, things like universal health care, universal child care. Not only will those things benefit our client populations, they'll directly benefit our members as well, because many of our members also have to choose between 6 days and paying rent. And many of our members, have to bargain away, healthcare coverage in order to try to get decent wages.
Sorry, Jordan, that's your time. Pam, would you like a 1-minute rebuttal?
Sure.
Okay, I'll start my timer now.
You talked about the NLRB. A lot of our organizing and new organizing does not go through an NLRB election process. Most of our organizing and recognition process is through voluntary recognition. A lot of our units are recognized voluntarily. And I'm not sure that we also have a national amalgamated local. So I'm not sure if you were just comparing New York or more broadly. We have won contracts and taken one of the elections that we won was through the ACLU in Chicago, where the ACLU challenged 15 positions within that local. We took it to an election and a hearing, and we won every single position in that fight. So the question was specifically around.
Sorry, Pam, that was your 1 minute.
Okay.
I know time flies. So the next question for our 2 president candidates, again, beginning with Pam, you will have a 2-minute.
To Jordan. No. Oh,
Yeah,
does it flip back and forth or?
No,
It's
I'm
fine
just
either way.
maintaining. Yeah,
Okay.
just for ease of administration, I'm maintaining the
Okay.
same order throughout. Okay, so the next question, first to Pam, you will have 2 minutes to answer. What is your position on NOLSW members outside the Northeast being able to vote for the Region 9A director, and why? And I will begin my 2-minute timer now.
Okay, thank you. My position is that the candidates outside of Region 9A, the candidates, I'm sorry, the members outside of Region 9A should be voting in the geographic region. This has historically our delegate, there's the shift from the delegate system to the 1 member, 1 vote system. The delegates in prior UAW conventions had always voted for the delegate in the regions where they were geographically based. Our voting strength is apportioned by region, and they've voted there. There are important reasons for that. I mentioned the servicing credit before. Every member of the IEB voted on that. And so maintaining those connections and having the influence over the regional directors in other regions is important. It's also really instrumental. In Maryland, for example, several years ago, there was a challenge. The state pulled funding, and that would have resulted in the loss of 30 jobs. Our connections with Region 8, not Region 9A, are what we use to be able to fight and win those that funding back. It was the CAP connections and the regional director allocating those funds in Region 8 to support that fight. And that happened also in terms of lobbying with a filing fee bill there. So it's really important for us to have influence over the regional directors in other regions. And it's consistent with a long extended past practice that's happened over decades. So I support the candidates being able to vote in their geographic region.
Okay, thank you, Pam. Jordan, would you like a 1-minute rebuttal?
Yes, please.
Okay. I will start the 1-minute timer now.
I'm frankly pretty disappointed to hear the response from Pam on that, because I was there at the Constitutional Convention with you, Pam. We were both delegates, and we both voted in 9A. We were seated with 9A for all of the roll call votes on the floor. We were in the Region 9A breakout for the regional meetings, which is where the regional director positions were nominated. We were not permitted to go to the other regional breakouts. Whether or not the UAW wants to decide that we should end up voting in our respective geographic regions in the future, fine. But the idea that this is a decision that was changed between this past July and now is outrageous. And it's just an effort to try to dissipate the voter support when NOLSW went overwhelmingly for one member, one vote. And it's dishonest to say that that would be historically accurate.
Okay, that was the 1-minute mark for the rebuttal. And now I will ask you the same question, Jordan, and you will have 2 minutes to answer the question in chief. What is your position on NOLSW members outside the Northeast being able to vote for the Region 9A director, and why? And I will start the 2-minute timer now.
Thank you. Well, as I imagine folks can guess from my rebuttal, I do not agree that we should be voting in our respective geographic regions, at least not for this election. If they want to restructure it going forward for the next round of elections, when our delegates can be elected in a regional basis and can vote in their regions when they are delegates, fine, we can talk about that then. But at least for this election, our representatives were in 9A. We have been told historically that we are all in 9A because our headquarters is in New York. And if anybody's confused about whether or not we default to being in 9A, I've got a whole bunch of documents that I attached to an affidavit that was filed in the lawsuit over this that point to NOLSW officially being in 9A. All of our staff organizers are voting in 9A, regardless of where they live geographically, because their headquarters that they answer to is in New York. NLG, as far as we can tell, because they're also a national unit within the national local, they're apparently voting in 9A since they don't have a region. I have no problem with us establishing connections with the other regional leadership, but that's not historically how it has been done. So to pretend that that's something that we should suddenly start doing now feels pretty disingenuous. And in particular, as somebody who's been a very active union member, I know that I've never been provided any contact information for anyone other than the regional leadership in 9A. And, I was there in the room when we nominated Brandon Mancia, and that was Natalie, actually, that gave the nominating speech to nominate Brandon. And that's part of why they want to try to split out the votes for NOLSW members to not all be in 9A, because they know that Brandon represents a real challenge to Bev. And this whole insular, protective, political, just backroom game playing is really frustrating, and the lack of transparency around it is very unfortunate and not consistent with how a democratic organization runs.
That is the 2-minute mark. Thank you, Jordan. Pam, would you like to use your 1-minute rebuttal?
Yes, absolutely.
I'll
Thank
start the timer now.
Jordan, talk about disingenuous. I'm really concerned every single morning of that convention. I went and tried to fight to get our delegates seated in the regions that they geographically come out of. It was a glitch and a mistake in this convention that is contrary to the entire history of this local. And you're saying that we're doing this to sort of elevate Beverly Brakeman over Brandon Mencia. The lawsuit itself that was filed, that you apparently filed an affidavit with, isn't talking about what's best for the members of NOLSW or what's right for them. It's talking about one member and where they want to vote because they serve on the campaign of Brandon Mencia. And everybody can support whatever candidate they want, but I really find it incredibly disingenuous for you to sit there and make accusations.
Apologies, that's your 1-minute mark. Okay, so we are going to move to our candidate for National VP who is with us tonight, Matthew. And Matthew, I will give you 2 minutes to answer each question. Since you're the only candidate here tonight, we'll skip the rebuttal. So I'll begin with your first question, which is, what union values do you see being promoted by yourself and the other candidates you are supporting, and how? And I will start the 2-minute timer now.
Thank you. It's a great question. I think our slate really is focused on 3 core union values: the members, fighting, and solidarity. Right. So what we want to do is we want to bring this union back to the members, to bring the members into the union, to develop the structures, to bring people together, to bring the units together regionally, locally, to increase, to build our solidarity, to actually do the work day in and day out to make those connections, to draw upon resources from the UAW, and to develop resources at our union level for education and training so that we can fight for better and stronger contracts, to develop model language, to circulate language across from, strong language from different CBAs, things that we want to see in every CBA. We want to be able to educate and train stewards and treasurers and bargaining committee members and everyone so that they have all the tools that they need to sit down at that bargaining table and get the best results for the members, and to enforce the contracts, to make sure that we don't lose any of the gains that we win. Now, this takes hard work. It takes attention. It takes structural work. And we are ready to get in and to do that work alongside all of you and all of the members.
Okay, thank you, Matt. The second question for you is, what do you hope to accomplish as National VP over the next 3 years, and how? And I will begin your 2-minute timer when you unmute yourself.
Okay. Well, so a lot of it has to do with just implementing all of those things. So we want to look at more regional and local meetings. We want to increase contacts between units. We want to make our union transparent. We want people to know when we're meeting and what's happening at the meetings. We want people to know what's happening with their money and to be able to understand what's going on with their funds. We want to be responsive to emails, to phone calls. We want to be there for units that are in bargaining battles, that are facing layoffs. We want them to know that we got their back. We want to be there for people. And so, we are going to look at ways that we can work with the leadership of the units, work with the staff organizers to build the structures that we need to do these things, to strengthen our union and to bring everybody together. We want to make sure that our website is updated. We want to make sure that records are digitized. We want to make sure that we can create spaces for member voices in committees, from everything from human rights, civil rights, DEI, policy work, legislative work, like Jordan was talking about before. And so, this is going to be something that this entire slate is committed to. It's something that we are all looking forward to doing, and it's something that we hope that you will give us the opportunity to do.
Okay, thank you, Matt. We are now going to proceed to our 2 candidates for Northeast VP. As per the coin toss that we did earlier, Natalie will be going first and Karen will be going second. So Natalie, I will direct the first question to you. You'll have 2 minutes to answer. Karen will have an optional 1-minute rebuttal, and then we'll do the reverse. So Natalie, what union values do you see being promoted by yourself and the other candidates you're supporting, and how? And I will begin your 2-minute timer now.
I see the 2 slates running, and I'm proud to be part of NLSW United versus the Solidarity Team slate because of these 2 very different values. I see our slate as being one of valuing grassroots involvement, grassroots membership, and I see the other slate as allied with the administration caucus and endorsing the administration caucus as being a slate of old guard, top down. Our members of our slate deeply supported 1 member, 1 vote as a basic principle of union democracy. The other slate, not so much. And in fact, the administration caucus opposed 1 member, 1 vote with their so-called Save the Wheel campaign, which they didn't even put their names onto, which because they justifiably should be embarrassed of such a position. They literally didn't fight for the right for members to vote for them in this election. I stand for empowering members. In my time in LSSA as a delegate, I incorporated changes to our shop meetings to clarify, community agreements around confidentiality and promote community comradeliness amongst our members. I incorporated labor notes, training materials for my fellow delegates as, and I became a delegate myself within the first 6 months of my joining LSSA. I also became a strike captain moving into our 2021 bargaining period, where I recruited other strike captains, helped to train them in Brooklyn Legal Services and citywide. And I also am proud to be starting my 2nd term as political rep, where I have I was the primary source of political outreach during our bargaining session. So I see I'm very proud of the ethos of our slate, and I'm very proud to be serving with them.
And that's your time. So Karen, would you like to use your 1-minute rebuttal?
Sure.
Okay.
One of the things that I have found frustrating and disappointing about some of the debate around these elections has been assumptions that have been made by folks who by and large have not been active members of our union for very long, and who oftentimes don't really have a deep understanding of the organization that they want to lead, or of sort of what the history and culture has been of that organization. I am not a member of an administration caucus. I supported 1 member, 1 vote. I left the staff of the UAW because I couldn't fucking stand Gary Jones, who interfered with our region and undermined the work we were doing, and personally targeted me for objecting to him. So that's why I retired. I did not want to work under somebody like that. And I think that you make incorrect assumptions about where other people in the leadership of this region and in our slate may stand on these issues.
That's your 1-minute mark.
We've never had a conversation, so you wouldn't know that.
So Karen, I'm going to ask you to answer the same question, and I'll give you 2 minutes for your answer in chief, and I will repeat the question before I begin the timer. So again, the question is, what union values do you see being promoted by yourself and the other candidates you are supporting, and how? And I will begin the timer now.
I would say that my overarching union value is in empowering our members to make their own choices and to decide what's important to them, to give them the skills and the information that they need to be successful, and to help them to sort of develop confidence in their skills and their power. And that's sort of how I approached my work as a staff organizer, NOLSW, and with the region. And I think that sort of there are obviously many, many things that could be improved in our union, but I think that the starting point is that we need to be more disciplined and focused in having a priority setting process that we involve the members in, and that it doesn't, we have to pick some priorities and things that we want to campaign on as a union. And we sometimes try to do too much, but we need to start by a member-driven process. And whatever we do needs to be focused on building member engagement, developing leaders, and demonstrating the power of collective action and of unions, so that people understand the value of the union and they begin to sort of incorporate that in everything they do, and their families appreciate it and their kids appreciate it. And that's sort of what my approach is to building a stronger union. Is it doesn't so much matter what of these things we pick, but we do something that engages people and gives them a demonstration of the power.
That is your time, Karen. Thank you. So we will now go to the second pre-written question for our Northeast VP candidates. We'll begin with Natalie and then go to Karen. Again, 2 minutes for your answer in chief, 1 minute for your optional rebuttal. So Natalie, what do you hope to accomplish? Oh, I'm so sorry. I forgot to ask Natalie if you want to use your 1 minute rebuttal. Apologies.
I would say that, it's true, Karen, we haven't had a conversation, and I think that that's quite frankly a problem. I think that it's a problem that, I've been a very active union member of my union for over 4 years, and I have gone shop by shop to all of our shops, and LSSA, by the way, is the largest unit of NOLSW, and overwhelmingly people didn't realize that we weren't our own local, that we were a unit of a larger nationwide local. This was news to everyone, nearly everyone that I spoke to, and so I haven't spoken to you, Karen, but most of our members aren't even aware of our place within NOLSW. So I think that that's part of the problem that my slate is trying to address in regards to member outreach and member engagement, which simply hasn't been happening, even in the form of regular emails.
And that is your 1 minute mark, Natalie. Okay, so now to the next question. We'll begin with Natalie. And you'll get 2 minutes to answer. Natalie, what do you hope to accomplish as regional VP over the next 3 years, and how? And I will begin your 2 minute timer now.
In terms of being regional VP, I hope to make efforts to actually coordinate within the region. Right now, the way that different units can sort of get to know each other, bond, collaborate, is primarily once every year and a half at the NJC, yearly meeting put on by the NOLSW. The Northeast region doesn't really have regional meetings, and I think that's very important, not only for people who can't travel to Las Vegas, where these meetings were held prior to the pandemic, but I think these units in the Northeast can offer each other so much in regards to solidarity. When our shop member Larry McCavan was fired, for instance, I think a more sort of proactive union would have alerted other units in New York City about our picket, show some solidarity in regards to this grievous act of economic violence against an LSSA shop member. And you know, that's the sort of thing that I would absolutely promote and push as vice president. And I would also work together with my slate to support organizing efforts. I'm an organizer, as I alluded to in my opening statement, and I have that ethos. I'm able to take off my lawyer hat and put on my organizer hat. And I believe I would work well, not only with my fellow slate members who are outstanding organizers, but also with the very talented organizers who are staff organizers of LSW, who are the primary reason that there has been some progress in regards to organizing new shops. I look forward to collaborating with them, supporting them, and increasing the organizing effectiveness of our region.
Okay. And Karen, would you like to use your 1 minute rebuttal?
Yeah, I just would like to point out a couple of things. I think that the structure of our union is such that we build leadership within the shops, and it's the responsibility of the shops to let the region, to let the local know if you need something. So I don't know about this person who was terminated, but had you put out the word, we certainly would have facilitated a call for support. But the fact that your members don't know that they're part of NOLSW, I would say, is not just a failing of NOLSW, but it's a failing of the local leadership, who were sort of the first line in terms of introducing the union to people, giving people orientation, getting them involved. And LSSA actually is an amazing shop in your, in your tradition of having that kind of leadership.
1 minute mark, Karen. So I will now give you 2 minutes to answer the same question I directed to Natalie, which I'll repeat now. What do you hope to accomplish as regional VP over the next 3 years, and how? And I'll begin your 2 minute timer now.
Well, as a retiree, I have felt like I've had more sort of bandwidth than a lot of other board members to be able to give time to the local and to help with whatever initiatives the local has chosen to focus on. And again, I think that the first step really needs to be going to the membership and having a priority setting process, sort of following their lead in terms of what it is that they want to do. I think that it's been very difficult for the past few years because of COVID, and folks who perhaps haven't even been in the union for much longer than that would know that there has been, more sort of, regional interaction. Prior to that time, I wasn't on the board. When I came onto the board, we were in the middle of COVID. But all over the country, there have been statewide associations that have been built by the members. Again, we're a member-driven union. We've got, a staff that's all over the country, and it's kind of, we pride ourselves on having active, engaged, brilliant, driven, committed members who take the initiative to create what it is that they want to see. So I guess that I would like to light a fire under that. I'd like to see more engagement and cross-pollination. I'd like to see better communication from the union to the membership. I'd like to use technology better than we do. I'd like to have a better communications game. Those aren't necessarily my functions as a board member, but I am totally down to put in my time and my expertise as somebody who knows the UAW and knows
that is
sort
your
of the
2 minute
skills.
mark, Karen. Thank you. Natalie, would you like to use your 1 minute rebuttal?
Yes, the NLSW website, for one small but very important example, that's the outward facing instrument to the world in terms of our nationwide local, is in dire need of updating. And that's not been a new phenomenon. That's been something that's been needed for years. As Karen and the rest of the slate have served in office, it's, in regards to the coordination of providing, various pieces of contract language and that sort of support. That's something that we could have used during bargaining, I don't know to what extent that was what was on offer in terms of comparative contract language
And
being
that
provided.
is your 1 minute mark, Natalie. Thank you.
Thanks.
So thank you, Natalie and Karen. We're now going to go to our 2 trustee candidates, Jacob and Mary Ellen. As per the coin toss earlier, Mary Ellen is going to go first. So Mary Ellen, I will ask you the first question and you'll have 2 minutes to respond. Jacob will have an optional 1 minute rebuttal, and then we'll do the reverse. So Mary Ellen, how would you describe the importance to the union of a trustee? So I will begin your 2 minute timer now.
I think it's one of the most important positions because it is the union's finances. And I think every member does want to make sure that their dues are being used appropriately. I think that what persons don't understand is that UAW provides the software that we have to use. It's not something you can just go in and make up your own and use, because there's certain reports that need to be done, and they're all computerized and they go along with their program. So that is one thing I did want to make clear, that it's not like I too have accounting experience. As I said in the last forum, I had a nonprofit arts council that I did bookkeeping for. One of the things that I wanted to do when I initially became part of the NOLSW was lots of our locals weren't even up to dues paying standards. And that was one of my goals, to get everyone up to the dues standards. And it all had to do with their length of their contract, when their negotiations went into effect. There is so much involved in all of this. And I would like to say, historically, I have known every NOLSW president that has been since NOLSW's inception. And I do not understand what you are saying when you say that you want to get back to the grassroots, because I feel we are. Now, whether or not, the NJC's locals leadership changes at every election, and it's up to the local to then train their staff on how, or their membership leadership on keeping books, on how to do bargaining, and how to become, and yes, organizers are there to help. And they should also be there to provide. They have access to all
Sorry,
the
Mary
different
Ellen, that's your
contracts.
2 minutes. Thank you. Jacob, would you like to use your 1 minute rebuttal?
Sure, thank you.
Okay, I'll start the timer now.
Great. So I agree with Mary Ellen that the trustee's role is very important, overseeing the union finances. It's important that money's not absconded with and is going to the proper purposes. And I think it's great that Mary Ellen was doing work to get locals up to dues paying standards. Thank you for that work. It's important. On the note of back to grassroots, I disagree. I think that there is not much transparency about what's happening, and in order for our members to be engaged, we need to know what's going on. I don't think that we have access to the audits or the accounting, and I think that would be helpful, a very basic level of transparency, if all members had some degree of access to that, to the extent that's appropriate. And also, we at my local, we were not given to even run our own books. So that was a big struggle for us.
Jacob, that's your 1 minute mark. Thank you. So you'll now have 2 minutes to answer the same question I directed to Mary Ellen, which I'll now repeat. How would you describe the importance to the union of a trustee? And I'll begin your 2 minute timer now.
Thank you. So as I said in my rebuttal, I agree with Mary Ellen. It's very important to oversee the finances, make sure they're going to good spaces. And I definitely think that we need to give members the tools to know what is expected of them. And I think even though it might not explicitly be part of the board members, part of the bylaws, I think they can help collaborate with the board and the staff to make sure that members do get the tools to know what is expected of them. So for example, our treasurer was flying in the dark for over a year from August 2021 when we signed our contract. We didn't have a meeting with the treasurer. I know that the treasurer was on leave, but I know that there's a lot of complex things at NOLSW that I don't understand, and I would wish that it would be more accessible to begin to understand the processes that are going on. But I just can't understand how hard it is to create something like a one sheet for new units, to understand how dues work, what kind of expenses are acceptable, what kind of protocols are necessary but before making those expenditures. So that's one thing that I think the trustee could be involved with to try to prevent errors instead of finding the errors and then backtracking. I think that would be a great thing.
Okay, thank you, Jacob. Mary Ellen, would you like to use your 1 minute rebuttal?
Yes, I would. Well, again, historically, I think we're more transparent now than we were when Jim Browdy was our first president. I think that we're more involved, I think, than the board was back then as well. I also think that the NJCs are the tools by which the national can train the local units. But again, the change in leadership at the local levels, there's got to be, we can't even get persons to report to us who their new leadership is, So if we don't know, then, it's just very difficult. And again, we do have forms that are you just fill them out, and you do the reports. We are in the process of changing the way we do it so that national has more oversight over what the locals are doing.
Thank you. Okay, so we're now going to get to our second question for our two trustee candidates. Again, we'll begin with Mary Ellen, who will have 2 minutes to respond. Jacob will have an optional 1 minute rebuttal, and then we will do the reverse. So, Mary Ellen, what do you hope to accomplish as trustee in the next 3 years, and how? And I'll begin your 2 minute timer now.
Thank you. I hope that we can continue to do the unit finances as we're trying to get all units to have a central account in New York, because UAW is concerned of local units having control over money out there, because we're an amalgamated local. We have been able to maintain that. We're the only locals that have what we have and are available to us at a local level. I do also want to say, just so the record is clear, when I went to the UAW conventions and Tim Yeager was the organizer at that time, we did go to Region 2A meetings. We did go to the Ohio ones and the regions. So you are wrong on that respect. I'm sorry. We did do that. I also want to continue to, help train people. No one's ever called me. I don't know. I think that we're all readily available if we know someone needs help. Pam is, I know Karen is, I know that our whole team is. Our whole purpose is for the membership. And it seems as though you're trying to make something up as you go of our history, which I don't understand where you come up with that. I mean, your slate comes up with that, but I mean, I understand the frustrations, because let me tell you, having been involved in this for the length of time I've been involved in, it's a long process to get change when you're dealing with however many
Right.
locals we have.
That's your 2-minute mark, Mary Ellen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jacob, would you like to use your 1-minute rebuttal?
I'm sure I'll make a quick comment.
Sure.
I'm not sure exactly what you're referring to by our slate is making things up. But I know that a lot of our members are definitely having real struggles with
I agree with that.
accessibility of the information that they need and the tools. Yeah, I think it might not be enough to be just readily available, which is great that you
No.
would respond if someone reached out, but just some kind of affirmative reaching out of support would also be great. I think that's it for my rebuttal.
Okay. Thank you, Jacob. I'm now going to ask you the same question and give you 2 minutes to respond, after which Mary Ellen will have an optional 1-minute rebuttal. So, Jacob, what do you hope to accomplish as trustee in the next 3 years, and how? And I'll begin your 2-minute timer now.
So I am, I would definitely look forward to fulfilling the responsibilities of trustee. I'm not afraid to speak up if I see something that looks like it doesn't look right. So, and in addition, beyond that, I am looking very much forward to the possibility of collaborating with the National Executive Board to help members work smarter and not harder. I think that we should be sharing templates and just information to make the job of running a union easier. I had to build a orientation for our members from scratch, but I would be happy to share what I've done without our particular CBA elements as a template for everyone. And I think that kind of information should be posted on our website. Also, we could make template meeting agendas. I've already made one change that is percolating through the rest of NOLSW. I've created a Google Form membership card that at first it was questionable whether it would be successful, but thankfully the NOLSW National Executive Board did approve it. So now that's moving on to other units. So instead of having to sign a green card or a PDF, people can just do a Google form and it's automatically in a spreadsheet. So it's much easier. Since we've implemented that, I think we've had 40 members fill that out, and 2 people do a paper card and 0 do a fill-in PDF. So it's very popular. So these kind of changes are definitely necessary. And also I hope to inspire members with the great work I've done at my union with my awesome executive team. And I can share that with everyone when as we're working. So just a couple points that we've done recently. We just got 10 to 20% raises mid-contract 2 months ago. So over $11,000 for attorneys and $4 for our
And
$4
that
an
is
hour for
your
support staff.
2-minute mark, Jacob. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mary Ellen, would you like to use your 1-minute rebuttal?
Yes, please.
Sure, I'll start your timer now.
I think our team is as invested in and as eager to see these changes happen as well. I think that it takes a lot more time than is understood. And again, I'll go back to the history of NOLSW, and I've known every one of our union presidents, our national union presidents, and they know me. And I think that grassroots is what we've been always about. And, you know, our organizers have been the ones that have always shared contracts. I mean, I don't know whether it's something that you've tried to get from your organizers and without success. I don't understand where the problem is, but clearly there's a problem and that needs to be addressed. But, you know, we have to,
And
we're
that
under the
is your
UAW.
1-minute mark, Mary Ellen. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Okay, we are now going to proceed to the audience Q&A portion. We have 2 questions in the chat. We have 3 questions in the chat, actually. So I'm going to start with Emily. And given that we are bumping up against 8:30 and I want to give adequate time for closing statements, I'm going to ask each candidate to limit their answer to 1 minute. And so, Emily, I will call on you first. Please unmute yourself and state who your question is to, and then ask your question.
Hi, everyone. I'm Emily Wu Yamasaki. I'm with the Inwood Shop of LSNYC, and I'm a paralegal advocate in the Tenant Rights Coalition. So this is a question for all the candidates for both president and vice president. What do you think our union can do to concretely address the needs and demands of our lowest paid legal workers who tend to be support staff of color, both during bargaining and between bargaining periods? And again, I ask this question as a paralegal advocate myself. Thank you.
And sorry, Emily, could you remind me who your question is directed to and
Sure.
the order in which you'd like to answer them?
It's the candidates for president and vice president.
Okay, so let's begin with Pam, then Jordan, then Matt, then Natalie, and then Karen. Okay, so Pam, I will give you a 1 minute timer starting now.
Oh, my timer didn't start.
Oh.
Thank you, Emily, for the question. I'm just going to wing it and go with your timer. I think it's really important. One of the things I do in looking at contracts is looking at the living wage in the area and making sure that none of our members are making less than a living wage, and really focusing on doing that. I think also doing flat raises that flat dollar amount raises that increase people at the lower end of the scale at a quicker rate is also important. I also think in terms of hiring processes, thinking about how we value experience and what types of experience we look at to make sure that we're looking at a continuum of different types of experience that people from different backgrounds might come to the organization with. So I think those are several ways that you can try and look at equity issues as opposed to equality, and try and be more progressive in the salary and wage scales that we.
Thank you, Pam. That's 1 minute. Next, we will go to Jordan, and I will start your 1 minute timer now.
Thank you. Emily, I totally agree. I think that support staff are often kind of treated as an afterthought. We tend to focus on the attorneys. And similarly, as a parallel, unions do tend to forget, in our union, we tend to kind of forget about the human services workers and focus really on the legal services, which is a shame since they make up a pretty big population percentage of our union members. But to your point, you know, the most critical piece is making sure that we're getting the voices of those lowest paid workers heard. So whether that's making sure that we have more direct forums where, you know, not like the NGAC where it's just, you know, like putting on speeches and events and things like that, but actually really hearing from members. I think this has been a really good process to model that going forward. And we need to make DEI committees a real thing at the national level and have that really as part of our strategy to filter out as priorities for hiring committees, as priorities for how our organizers work, and to make sure that those members feel safe in those spaces.
1 minute. Thank you, Jordan. We're next going to go to Matt. So Matt, I'll start your 1 minute timer now.
Thank you. So, you know, I have to agree. Emily, this is a great question. This is a huge issue in our union. You know, it's a particular issue in the NLG unit where many of our members are themselves not, the legal workers and not lawyers. You know, I agree with Jordan. I think that we need to look at creating spaces for member voices at the unit level. You know, we need to be making sure that legal workers are involved in bargaining, making sure they're involved in contract enforcement, that there is training that involves incorporating everybody who's in the union, because again, you know, we need to build that solidarity. We need to make sure that we have all the tools for these fights. And, you know, this has been very important for us at the NLG. You know, we've seen, you know, it's the legal workers that management has gone after that we've had to fight back against. It's the legal workers that management has tried to shut off of the protections of the CBA. And so, you know, by having those people at the table, having the people that management is going after, negotiating with them, it's made all the difference.
Thank you, Matt. That was 1 minute. Next, we will go to Natalie, and I'll start your 1 minute timer now.
Thank you, Emily, for the question. I think that this is vital. In fact, in our bylaws of the NOLSW bylaws, and I encourage everyone to read our bylaws, wall-to-wall shops are what the bylaws extol and support, and one thing, in addition to what Jordan mentioned about the need for DEI to be supported within our local, also, I absolutely applaud the fact that within LSSA, there is a support staff caucus starting where support staff members can meet together, where they can support each other, and also where leaders can form, and where collective asks of the rest of the union can be formed, so that they are not overpowered by people like me, lawyers, who oftentimes take up too much space on the union listserv and too much space in shop meetings.
Okay, thank you, Natalie. We are now going to go to Karen, and I will start your 1-minute timer now.
Well, this is at bottom an issue that's addressed through collective bargaining. I mean, to state the obvious. And I guess what I would say is that in every negotiation, I try to have my teams, pick like the couple of issues that are most important to them and build an organizing plan around it. And obviously the organizing plan here starts with building solidarity between the attorneys and the non-attorneys, so that the attorneys are committed to supporting the just demands of the non-attorneys. So you have to do a lot of work and lay the groundwork long before you get into bargaining, both in terms of building a case for, for higher pay, but also in having having solidarity and a commitment from everybody to support these demands, and having a campaign plan that you will use.
Thank you, Karen. That's your
there.
1 minute. So the next question in the chat comes from Nicole. So Nicole, please unmute yourself and ask your question, and please specify who your question is to. And I will ask the candidates to limit their responses to 1 minute so that everyone has time for closing statements. So Nicole, the floor is yours.
Hi, good evening. So this is both to Pam and Jordan. It's pretty apparent that this is a really hard union to service our members. And I think you could be the best president in the world. And when you're a national local, it's tough, especially given that we also have, we have a lot of small and medium shops. Even LSSA has just one full-time president and one full-time service person, basically, for such a huge shop. I don't even know how many members we have, 400 or more at this point, maybe 450, I don't know. Are we servicing the different units well? Are we doing a good job? If we're not doing a good job, how can we do it better? And that the question goes to both of you.
And I think that question was for Pam and Jordan, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Pam, you can go first. I'll give you 1 minute, and then Jordan will have 1 minute.
Right.
So,
Thank you, Nicole, for your question. Yes, it does present a lot of challenges. Servicing our local does present a lot of challenges. It's an opportunity recently. And I do think that we do well in servicing our members. We can always do better, right? Like there have definitely been challenges over the past several years, given the pandemic, staffing changes, things like that. One of the things that I've wanted to do is to free up my time. I currently service 14 units myself, in addition to the president's duties, in addition to helping cover while the financial secretary treasurer has been out on extended medical leave. So it's been a challenge, and there are things, that have been missed. But I think overall we have incredible organizing staff that service units really well. And we can always do better, and have, some of the ideas that folks have brought today are things that I've thought about. There are challenges in terms of time to be able to do that. But
thank you, Pam. That's 1 minute. And now we will go to Jordan, and I'll start your 1 minute timer now.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I would say that sometimes we service them well and sometimes we don't. I think that it is not super consistent. If you've got a great organizer and you've got, a connection with them and stay in touch with them, then it goes well. But a lot of the times, even, when our organizers are really excellent and trying to cover everything they can, they're bargaining, 5 or 6 different contracts at the same time. There's, all of their contracts come up for renewal at the same time. And they're trying to organize new drives at new workplaces. So, I think we need to have a really deliberate strategy around how we deploy the organizing staff and how we support them. Does that mean that we have sort of like designated floater organizers that deal with specifically like first-time union drives? Is it that we shift unit assignments around, when folks have too many contracts that are all on the same cycle? So I think we need to have more connection between the members and the leadership in terms of identifying where the problems are and gaps are, because what I'm hearing from the other side is that some of this is the first they're hearing of it.
Okay, our next question in the chat comes from Lynn. So Lynn, please unmute yourself, state who your question is to, and I will ask the candidate to limit their response to 1 minute.
Hi, good evening, everybody, and thanks to all the candidates for attending. This has been super interesting. My name is Lynn. I'm a staff attorney at Manhattan Legal Services, and my question is specifically for Jordan. So you've been a member of NOLSW for about 4 years, and you said that you're in a unit about 10 people in Oregon. I don't know if I'm pronouncing Oregon correctly. And you're running against somebody with a lot more of extensive experience and years with our union. So I'd like to hear a little bit more about your experience, and could you let us know how many grievances you've done, or arbitrations, or NLRB filings, or contracts that you've negotiated, or stuff along those lines. Thanks.
So you have 1 minute to respond, and I'll start the timer now.
Thank you. There's a lot to try to respond to there. First, I don't know that I actually said how many members there are in my unit, and I also didn't mention that I am the chair and head steward and led the bargaining team. And in terms of, yes, I have filed ULPs, unfair labor practices, when I was an external organizer in LA. I have won NLRB elections at facilities in LA and Orange County as well. And when I was running field offices on the primary campaign, I mean, that was covering like 7 assembly districts in Nevada and 8 congressional districts in LA and Orange County in California. That was maybe 4 million targets just in California. That was ranging from Santa Monica all the way down to Santa Ana and Irvine. So I was running all of the staff and multiple field offices for that entire area.
That's 1 minute, Jordan. Thank you.
Yeah.
And Karen, I see your chat. I'm going to give you a minute to answer the prior question that you were interested in answering. And in fairness, I'm also going to give Natalie 1 minute since you're both here. So again, that question was about servicing a unit with a lot of small and medium shops. So Karen, you have 1 minute, and that's starting now.
Yeah, thank you. I just, that's something that is of great interest to me. And I guess what I would say is that the staff organizers can't do it all, and they shouldn't do it all. And what we should always be doing is developing leadership in the shop, giving people support and training. But ultimately, it should be that they can handle a certain, level of problems on their own. They can contact somebody for support when they need it. And we're able to sort of like filter the things that are too complex or that, require an organizer to do, but that the shop should be empowered to the greatest extent possible, so people know how to do these things and they're confident in doing them. And that's the way that you have a force multiplier in a union like ours. And it's also just better because we want people to be empowered to solve their own problems.
Thank you, Karen. So Natalie, I'm also going to give you 1 minute to answer the same question, starting now.
I agree with the point that unit members need to be empowered to rise up as leaders. I myself have not felt that support from the current leadership, speaking from personal experience. And I will say, just in a related note, in terms of the many units that are in our local, I learned so much in running for this election, but so many of our members have no idea. I would absolutely support having all of the units listed on the NLSW website, as well as a basic contact information for an email address of some way of reaching each of these units, so that the units can be in touch with each other.
Okay, thank you, Natalie. And the last question in the chat comes from Sonia. So Sonia, please unmute yourself, state who your question is to, and I will ask each candidate to limit their response to 1 minute.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thanks for the forum. It's really interesting to be able to hear from everybody, and I appreciate this being held. Seeing the announcement of the forum, it appears on the surface to be a neutral forum. And I'd like to be assured of whether that was the case and how it was planned and prepared for. Can we hear from each of the candidates whether they knew ahead of time what the moderator's questions for them were going to be?
All right, let's go in the same order we've been going in and start with Pam. So Pam, please unmute yourself.
Thank you. No, I did not know any of the questions in advance.
Okay, and next is Jordan.
No, I also did not know any of the questions in advance. As you can see from this process, most of them are being generated in the chat by members as we go. So I suppose if any of y'all know, if you talk to anybody else about the questions you wanted to ask, that might be something that where one person might have known you were going to, but they were certainly never discussed with all of us, and none of us knew what questions Liz had prepared.
If I can clarify or repeat my question, I'm not asking about the member questions. My question is about the moderator questions.
Then the short answer would be no.
Okay, next we have Matt.
No, I had no idea what the moderator questions would be beforehand.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Next we have Natalie.
I also had no idea what the moderator questions would be beforehand.
Next we have Karen.
No.
Okay, next we have Mary Ellen. You're muted, Mary Ellen. Mary Ellen, I think you need to unmute yourself.
I knew that. I'm
Okay.
doing my screen instead of down here, and I had the chat open on top of it. Sorry. No, but I do want to clarify one thing. I think that Natalie said that I don't think we're allowed to use union resources for elections. I don't think, are we? Anyway, that's a question for Pam to answer, but I don't think you can do that. You can't even use mailing lists that are used from the organizers.
Okay, that was a remark that, you know, in my view as a moderator was directed at Natalie. So in fairness, I'm going to give Natalie, say 20 seconds to respond.
I wasn't contemplating putting a member's email address on the website. I was contemplating putting on some means of contacting the various units if one exists. I recognize that one may not exist.
Okay. Mary Ellen, do you want, say, 10 seconds to respond to that? Okay. So now, Jacob, you're next for answering Sonia's question.
I did not get the moderator questions in advance.
Okay, thank you, folks. We're now going to move on to the closing statements. Each candidate is going to have 2 minutes, and we are going to go in the same order we've been going in. First, we're going to do Pam, then Jordan, then Matt, then Natalie, Karen, Mary Ellen, and Jacob. So, Pam, please unmute yourself, and I will begin your 2-minute timer now.
Thank you again to Liz and Gib and the members from LSSA for organizing this opportunity. I think it's fantastic to have so much engagement in the election process. I think everyone has a choice in this election, and it's really easy to talk about ideas. And one of the challenges as an incumbent is you have a record to run on, right? And challenges that you face. And it's easy to talk about how to do things better. It's challenging to actually be in the trenches and doing that work. And I have the experience. I know this local. I have been a member for 20 years. I know the finances. I've done every job except the administration in this local. And I know how to fix the challenges that we have faced and how to keep growing this union and making it stronger. And I would ask you for your support in being able to continue that vision. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. We're now going to go to Jordan. And Jordan, I will start your 2-minute timer now.
Thank you, everybody, and I want to reiterate my gratitude to Liz and to Gib for providing this forum and facilitating it, and to all of the LSSA members for attending and asking these questions. I think it is really, frustrating that so many of the incumbents didn't make attending this forum a priority, and there's only been one other forum, and they didn't attend that either. Indeed, a representative of the slate last week said that it wasn't worth it because it was only for a few small units, like those members don't matter as much, and as if the recording wouldn't be available where every member would be able to go see what their priorities are. I do hope that having these forums is going to lay the groundwork for new expectations for NOLSW leadership to be accountable and answer to the membership. This election is unusual in that it's happening at all. We've had very few contested elections in NOLSW history, but the timing's perhaps not really incidental, since it's also the first time that we're voting directly in one member, one vote through for the UAW International Executive Board. As I think Matt had mentioned, we're endorsed by UAWD, and they're also endorsing Brandon Mancia in Region 9A. So, strongly urge everyone to check out Brandon's website and our website. And keep an eye out for ballots in both of those elections. But all of this is really amid a backdrop of broader union growth across many sectors across the entire country, really. And it's everything from, grad students at Columbia to Amazon warehouse workers in Staten Island. And we're seeing more community support that we really need to recognize is a moment, a historic moment that's really not unlike when we were founded in the 70s. And that was a period where big changes were possible and people made big plans. And, I'm running on the NOLSW United slate because we are ready to take that founding commitment and really bring it into the 21st century.
Jordan. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, next we are going to go to Matt. So Matt, I will begin your two-minute timer now.
Thanks again to LSSA 2320. The incumbents are running on their experience, but ask them, what exactly have they done over the past several years? On their website, they claim a host of administrative accomplishments, but nearly all of them, after initial NEB approval, have not moved forward. Is there a new database for digitizing our records? What about cybersecurity? A new website? The transfer to the NOLSW bank has been a mess. Units had to wait for months to get access to their funds without explanation. The check from one unit wasn't even cashed for 8 months. They point to diversity initiatives, but all they did was start a Human and Civil Rights Committee that did nothing other than create a survey, which the NEB never implemented, and that committee is now defunct. They tout the growth of the union, but the incumbents are not out there organizing new units. The organizers are. Any growth in our union is attributable not to the incumbents, but to the organizers. Astoundingly, their website suggests that NOLSW leadership hasn't fulfilled one of their most basic duties, to manage staff properly. They suggest that they have not been in compliance with state law where NOLSW staff are employed. They say they are working to fix this, but are they in compliance yet? Is there even an employee manual? The differences between the two slates in this election are stark. Our slate is dedicated members, ready to work and fight with proven results. We show up. The incumbent slate is marked by indifference to members and complacency. They didn't even care enough to run an actual NOLSW member for national vice president. So please vote. Vote for democracy, vote for transparency, vote for people who will work and fight alongside and for you. Vote for the NOLSW United Slate. We are rank and file members just like you, and we all deserve better than this. We all deserve a working, functioning, fighting union, and we can do it together. Begins with your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Next, we are going to go to Natalie. So Natalie, I will begin your 2-minute timer now.
I'm running because I believe that LSSA deserves better in terms of NOLSW leadership. That's why I tossed my hat in the ring with the slate. Despite having a full-time job and working, unlike my opponent, I am putting the time in for this election because I believe in this slate, and I believe what we can accomplish together, and I believe what we can accomplish in regards to supporting the staff organizers who haven't had enough support in my estimation up till now. The current leadership speaks of empowering neighbors, empowering members, but I have actually, done my best to do so in my time at LSSA. I have empowered members of the LSSA of Brooklyn Legal Services shop to become strike captains. I have organized, a really amazing one-day strike leading into our bargaining, contract acceptance vote that helped our COLA a little bit, at least, not as much as it should have, given management's, absolutely atrocious behavior. But, I believe that, I remember back to that day of the one-day strike, members picketing in front of our Ron Rasmussen's place, the thrilled look in people's eyes. Scabby was there. I believe in an empowered membership, and I've actually done the work to do that. And I'm willing to collaborate with the organizers and with my slate to do that. Please check out UAWD for the, please check out LSW, united.com for details as to our platform, for more information about each of the slate members that I'm so proud to run with. And please vote for us when your ballots arrive shortly.
Okay, thank you, Natalie. Next, we will go to Karen. And Karen, I will begin your 2-minute timer now.
Well, thank you for holding this forum. And thank you to everybody for showing up to listen. I've been involved with this union for close to 30 years. I've been a rank and file member and leader. I worked on the staff for 5 years, and then I worked for the UAW, servicing thousands of members all over New England for 12 years, empowering them, training them, helping them to negotiate great contracts and solve their workplace disputes and build strong unions for themselves. I know the UAW inside and out. I know its dysfunction, and I know, how it needs to change and how I'd like to see it change. And I'm happy to share my love and my commitment for this union for as long as the members want me. And otherwise, I'll ride off into the sunset and enjoy my golden years. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Karen. We will next go to Mary Ellen. So Mary Ellen, I will begin your 2-minute timer now. You are muted, Mary Ellen. So I'll restart your 2 minutes when you
That's
unmute.
fine. Thank you for having the forum again. I'm sorry. And for those that are here attending and listening, it's been a strange 3 years because of the pandemic. We've also had to move offices at the national level, and there's just been a lot of change happening in addition to the unit accounts being changed. I think that our slate is on the right path. And I think that we can do a lot as long as we are given the chance. I don't know, at a local level, I also, in our contract, we have that we're involved in the orientation and new staff. So anytime there's orientation, I have a chance to give I did have, I'm not the president anymore, but the union history of our local and our national. I don't understand why people can't do that on their own, especially those that have been involved in NOLSW or as units in NOLSW for as long as they have. We've had So I would just say, you know, I think we're as dedicated, and I don't think that our visions are too much different, but there are some things that bind you, like the use of the UAW software. I mean, there's certain limitations that you have as a result of being a UAW local. And I would like to say that I believe our slate is well experienced, and a lot of the information that it seems to me, it feels like I'm being attacked by Jordan and them in the way that they present us as
I'm sorry,
not being
Mary Ellen.
involved.
That
Thank
was
you.
2 minutes. Thank you. So Jacob, we'll go to you next, and I will start your 2-minute timer now.
Liz. And thank you to everyone in LSSA for helping host this forum, and for members for getting involved in the election. So basically, in summary, I and the NOLSW United Slate are ready to get to work for NOLSW members across the country. I'm ready to learn new software. I love learning new software, finding workarounds, tips and tricks. So that would be fun for me. And I can't wait to review members' responses to the survey. So please fill that out on NOLSWUnited.com. I also want to share that Brett Catani is the other NOLSW United candidate for trustee. You can get to know him on by watching the Lasso Forum recording or on our website, NOLSWUnited.com. And I could just point out that the other trustee candidates did not show up at either forum. But so I haven't gotten a chance to get to know them. And I know ballots will be hitting mailboxes in the coming days, and they are due to be in by November 15th. So get those in.
Okay, thank you, Jacob. And Jordan, I see your chat. Yes, I will give you 30 seconds to respond, and I will also give Mary Ellen, say 15 seconds to respond to your rebuttal. So I'll start your 30 seconds. Just give me a second. 30 seconds starting now.
Thank you. I just want to say that none of this is personal, and none of it is about trying to attack anyone. And I think that this is part of what happens when you have a really insulated group that doesn't hear anything outside of its little ivory tower, is that then feedback, you know, and criticism can feel really intense because it's pretty novel. And I think that that's part of why we really do need to keep this organization member-led and member-driven, so we don't get into that.
And that was 30 seconds. Mary Ellen, I'll give you 15 seconds on the clock, starting now.
Okay. I think that for me, it's the way it's said, and the what seems to be behind it, which is the thing. I don't think I'm insulated or in an ivory tower. I think I'm very much accessible.
That was your rebuttal. Thank you, Mary Ellen. Okay, thank you all of our candidates for your closing statements, and thank you very much for staying over time. We're about 25 minutes over time, so I really appreciate you staying late. In closing, I'm just going to give some logistical pointers to our members about voting. As a few candidates have said, ballots are being sent out by mail. You should receive them in the next few days if you haven't already. So make sure to carefully read the instructions on your ballot and be sure to mail it back on time. Ballots must be received by November 15th to be counted. So thank you so much to our candidates. Thank you to Gib, who could not be here tonight, who helped me prepare the forum. And thank you to our members for your thoughtful questions and for joining us tonight. It was very informative, and I thank the candidates for your participation and coming to meet with us. So I will send out the recording to our members and also to the candidates afterwards. Thank you.